listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by USA Today. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. Your reader for the first hour is Alan Blackburn. Tens of thousands flee fires in Washington state. Many in the Spokane area have lost everything. At least 60,000 people have been evacuated from Spokane, Washington area as wildfires fueled by strong winds and dry conditions destroyed hundreds of buildings and knocked out power across the region. 3 wildfires, collectively referred to as the Spokane Area Fire, have consumed more than 7,700 acres and were not contained as of August 2nd, said Benjamin Kossel, a spokesperson for the California Interagency Incident Management Team 7. Kossel said the fires have burned more than 600 structures, including homes and businesses. More than 900 firefighting personnel, including from outside the state, were battling the blazes. Spokane Mayor Lisa Brown said at a news conference on August 2nd that the wildfires were the worst natural disaster our region has faced. The cause of the fires is under investigation, and no deaths have been reported. Officials said a historic weather event fueled the fire's rapid growth, citing unusually high temperatures, a record-setting drought, and strong winds. U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell of Washington warned that wind speeds as high as 35 miles an hour could lead the blazes to expand further. The next couple of days will be challenging, but we are going to do everything we can to make sure the resources are here and that this issue gets our nation's attention. The blazes led Washington Governor Bob Ferguson to declare a statewide emergency, banning most recreational and agricultural burning. There are just so many Washingtonians that have literally lost everything in a very, very short period of time, Ferguson said at a news conference. Ferguson said he spoke with President Donald Trump and made a request for federal emergency management assistance. I had the clear sense he understood what was going on, Ferguson said. About 9,000 homes and businesses were without power across the Spokane region on August 3rd, according to USA Today outage tracker. Well over half the outages were concentrated in Spokane County. Many residents who had fled from the wildfires returned to find their homes destroyed. This is what Imagine a War Zone is like, Spokane resident Sherry Clark told the newspaper as she stared at the remnants of what used to be her home and beloved garden. It feels unreal. Nearby, Kristen Renz surveyed the damage to the home of her son and daughter-in-law in northwest Spokane. There was very little that wasn't scorched by the flames. Her daughter-in-law, Kimber Renz, salvaged a muffin tin from the rubble. It's unrecognizable, Kristen Renz told the outlet. The National Weather Service issued air quality alerts in much of Washington state, plus neighboring Idaho and Oregon. Air pollutants can cause breathing difficulties for children, the elderly, as well as persons with respiratory problems. The state's fire season begins in July and runs through October when rain returns to the region. Since the start of summer, more than 1,000 fires have burned about 450,000 acres in Washington. Key races to watch in 5 state primaries. Trump's endorsements will be put to the test. Voters head to the polls in 5 states on Tuesday, August 4th, that's today, in primaries that will determine nominees heading into the general elections for statewide offices in hotly contested swing states and congressional seats that are in play after Republican gerrymandering wins. The Michigan, Virginia, Kansas, Washington, and Missouri primaries will test the grasp that President Donald Trump's endorsements hold over the Republican base and shape the power balance in Congress. With 3 Senate seats, 2 open governor's races, and 46 House seats in the mix. In Michigan, the bitter Democratic primary has become the latest test of the party's ideological direction. By far the highest profile race nationally is between Abdul El Sayed, a Detroit-based public health officer, and U.S. Representative Haley Stevens for the Democratic nomination to succeed Senator Gary Peters, a Democrat who has held the Michigan seat since 2015. Peters announced in April he was not seeking re-election. El Sayed has been endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America against the more moderate Stevens. A July 30th poll showed El Sayed leading Stevens by 15 points on the Democratic side. The Democratic primary was a three-way race until State Senator Mallory McMorrow dropped her bid in early July. Despite El Sayed's support from Democratic socialists such as Bernie Sanders, he told CNN he's not someone who's a socialist. I believe in capitalism. I just believe that capitalism has to be regulated. In April, El Sayed drew criticism for campaigning with Hassan Piker, a staunchly anti-Israel streamer who has made comments supporting Hamas. The appearance prompted pushback from Jewish groups and moderate Democrats who questioned El Sayed's judgment and electability in the fall. Stevens' campaign is more in line with the established moderate Democratic platform, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer endorsed her campaign. The race is taking a combative turn with personal attacks. Also racing for the Senate, Ruby Red, Kansas, and Blue, Virginia. Kansas Republican Senator Roger Marshall and Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner are up for re-election, and the opposing parties are deciding who to run against them. Both Kansas seats have been held by Republicans since 1939, but Kansas City area pastor Adam Hamilton, who preached at Obama's second inauguration, leads the pack of 11 Democrats in a poll of 600 likely Democratic voters, and he leads Marshall in spending. One lesser-known GOP primary challenger, Pon Naramore, will be up against Marshall on Tuesday. Warner will advance the general election as he is uncontested in the primary. On the Republican side, three challengers, Kim Farrington, Burt Mills-Zusawa, and David Williams, face an uphill battle to oust the three-term incumbent. Republicans haven't held a Virginia seat since 2009, and the Virginia's 2025 governor's race has shown the state's political trajectory has only grown more challenging for the GOP. After Democratic Abigail Spanberger won the governor's race in November 2025 by 15 points, Republicans putting this race into play looks incredibly doubtful, said the Cook Political Report in its race rating. Democrats are defending governor seats as Trump tests endorsement power. Both Democratic governors in Kansas and Michigan are leaving office after being termed out from back-to-back wins in states that Trump carried. Now both seats are open, and the question is whether Democrats can hold on without their incumbents on the battle. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer won races in 2018 and 2022, despite Trump flipping the state red in 2016 and again in 2024. In Kansas, Governor Laura Kelly pulled off the same in 2018 and 2022 in a state Trump won by double digits in 2016, 20, and 24. Looking to succeed Whitmer, Democratic Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is the leading candidate. Benson is leading in the polls over both her Democratic opponent, Sheriff Chris Swanson, and Republicans vying for the seat. Former Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, a longtime Democrat, dropped his independent bid in late May, citing surging Democratic energy nationally. Trump-endorsed U.S. Senator Representative John James is leading the Republican pack with 40%. Perry Johnson, a multimillionaire and former gubernatorial candidate, is still vying for the seat, polling 8 points behind James, while 17% of the Republicans' voters are still undecided. Missouri could hand Republicans a new congressional seat. Voters in all 5 states will also cast ballots for U.S. representative seats, as both parties battle to control the lower chamber of Congress. GOP-led efforts to redistrict the congressional map failed in the fall of 2025. Trump urged the state to redraw the districts to give an edge to Republicans to pick up a Democrat-held seat in the 3rd Congressional District, currently held by Representative Sharice Davids. Masterson, the Trump-endorsed governor candidate, led the redistricting charge. Democrats and the 3 Republicans each face challengers in their own party. All 8 Missouri House of Representatives seats are on the ballot, just months after a court upheld new maps drawn by Republicans in the state legislature in the fall. Although legal challenges continue to play out and could yet invalidate the map, the 5th Congressional District, currently held by Democrat Representative Emanuel Cleaver in the Kansas City metropolitan area, was carved up to favor a Republican challenger. Cleaver, who's still running, is one of the 2 Democrats representing the state in the House. 6 Republican candidates are on the primary ballot, seeking to oust the Congress member, including State Senator Rick Bratton and Navy veteran Tyler Burks. The Kansas City Supreme Court ballot measure in Washington State. In Washington State's top two primary system, the top two candidates advance the general election regardless if they're from the same party. 9 of the incumbents in the U.S. House of Representatives will seek re-election, including Republican Dan Newhouse, who's retiring from his post representing the 4th District. Newhouse held one of 2 Republican Washington seats in Congress. The other 8 representatives and both senators are Democrats. Does the gold standard exam pass the test? The new college entry assessment boosts Florida graduation rates. The college entrance exam that Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth hailed as the nation's new gold standard, promising to open doors at some of America's most elite institutions, is instead seeing its heaviest use as a remedial high school graduation test. The USA Today investigation found that in Florida, the first state to broadly embrace the exam, the classic learning test, also called the classic learning test, has become less a college admissions test than a graduation alternative for struggling students. School officials credit it with boosting graduation rates. While critics say it allows students to earn diplomas without demonstrating the skills, especially the math skills that Florida otherwise requires. Since 2023, high school students who couldn't pass the state's reading and algebra graduation exams or earn qualifying SAT or ACT scores have instead used the newer CLT or classic learning test to receive a diploma. An analysis comparing the CLT with the SAT and ACT math sections found the CLT had a higher concentration of questions researchers described as pre-algebra or middle school math. If a student struggled with algebra or concepts beyond it, I can conceive that they would have more success on CLT because there's a higher proportion of items that come in everything before algebra. Yet 2 years after Florida started its experiment with CLT, the nation's elite military academies and several university systems have added it to their accepted college entrance exams. USA Today scoured school board minutes and found officials in at least 9 Florida districts attributed a rise in graduation rates to the introduction of CLT. At a school board meeting in May, Superintendent of Duval County Public Schools in Jacksonville told the board that the CLT helped boost the district graduation rate by 7%. We are hopeful that CLT will remain because it has been a game changer for some of our kids who can't seem to manufacture the ACT or SAT scores. Students have a formula to beat the CLT's math section, said one for Hillsborough County in Tampa. There's enough pre-algebra material, she said, that a student can confidently answer several especially easy questions. Then they can pick the same letter, say B, for every remaining questions. 9 times out of 10, that got them a score high enough to graduate. District records show that about 2,500 students in the Hillsborough district graduating class satisfied their math requirement via the CLT, or roughly 1 in 6. That's true for thousands more Florida students in other districts. We're saying, oh yeah, they got it, but we know that they didn't. Jeremy Tate, a CEO of Classic Learning Initiatives, the company that administers the CLT, said they're aware the assessment is primarily be used as a graduation test in Florida. But Tate disagreed with critics who say the test is easier than SAT or ACT. The score needed to pass is up to the Florida Department of Education, Tate said. State officials say they set the passing score exactly where the CLT initiative suggested would match ACT or SAT. Still, they are slightly raising the score needed starting next year. Before, a student has scored 11 out of 40 total possible points to graduate. Now they'll have to reach 14. They think they're doing well and they're passing, but at the end of the day, when you get a job or go to college, they're not just able to do well on a typical test, and that's concerning. The CLT raised graduation rates around the state. You saw the cut score was based on information from a test vendor comparing it with SAT. Raising the cut scores this year will make the CAT more competitive. It was easier to get a passing score, but now where the scores are, the bar is equally rigorous. Administrators at Hillsborough said at a meeting in July that the new standards so far have been harder for students to reach. What's on the test? Though the reading sections most often drive controversies around the CLT, educators and students often said that it's the math section that makes the test easier. The student at University of Central Florida found the CLT's math section easier, even though, unlike the SAT, the CLT does not allow a calculator. It had more geometry questions and less about algebra and statistics. I usually score well with reading and writing, but math is always my shaky subject. Being able to see that the math was easier than the ACT and SAT was something that really helped. The math section is so different, it's not even possible to compare the CLT with the SAT. The layman's term must be easier, he said. The 2024 sample of Florida's Algebra 1 test shows 10 questions that would require students to solve for variable interpretive graph questions and work with exponents and square roots. Can it predict college success? 3 years after the adoption of the test, no Florida university was able to provide performance statistics for CLT, ACT, and SAT enrollees. It says it's too early to evaluate student outcomes because the first group of students is only in its third year. Today, the test has been administered roughly 500,000 times, and the company knows where students are sending CLT test scores, but it does not know if the students were accepted or enrolled in classes. Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 12:16. Blanche rescinds the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said he was rescinding the anti-weaponization fund that stalled a Senate vote on his nomination for Attorney General, and 2 Republicans have now cleared the way for his nomination to move forward. Blanche announced the anti-weaponization decision August 2nd in a post on X. The heavily criticized fund would have paid allies of President Donald Trump who said they were unfairly prosecuted, with Trump specifically called out those charged in attacks on January 6, 2021 as deserving compensation. Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Tom Tillis of North Carolina had held up a committee vote on Blanche's nomination over questions about the fund. However, they issued a joint statement yesterday saying Blanche's move on the fund and clarification that tax benefits granted to Trump and his business and 2 oldest sons in controversial settlement would be restricted to them and only applied retroactively was enough to win their support. My team and I have met with committee members and senators over the past several weeks and addressed my concerns or outstanding questions, Blanche wrote. We have enjoyed good faith discussions and as a result issued the following order and update with regard to the May IRS settlement. Senator Cornyn has reached an agreement with the Department of Justice which will be issuing a formal order permanently terminating the anti-weaponization fund and making clear in a binding written document that the scope of the audit settlement is limited only to the plaintiffs, including the president and the IRS. Blanche's repeal of the fund will help pay the way for his confirmation. The Senate Judiciary is scheduled a nomination vote for today, August 4th. The $1.8 billion fund was created as a part of a settlement to resolve a $10 billion lawsuit that Trump filed against the IRS over accusations that the agency mishandled his tax records. The fund was set to go to victims of lawfare and weaponizations. Opponents argue that it would allow Trump's political allies and those pardoned for the January 6th storming of the Capitol to cash in on taxpayer dollars. After being announced in May, the fund faced a series of legal setbacks. Trump and Trump's Justice Department tried to retreat from its creation, but on July 31st, the president appealed a ruling that blocked access to the fund. After the holdup over Blanche's confirmation, Trump took to social media on August 1st to offer a new threat to Republican senators: approve Blanche as Attorney General or the anti-weaponization fund will return. It will immediately be back on the burnt table and I will get it done, he wrote on August 1st. Moves on to another page here. Iran denies U.S. talks as Trump says he delayed an attack. Iran denied President Donald Trump's assertion that Tehran was set to begin a new round of negotiations with the United States, contradicting the president after Trump said he held off carrying off the biggest attack since World War II to allow talks to restart. Trump, speaking to reporters on Air Force One on Sunday, said the United States was all set to go with what he describes as a massive attack in Iran over the weekend, but scrapped the plans at the request of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. Trump said the three Middle Eastern allies expressed confidence about a deal emerging to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and address Iran's nuclear capability. He said Iran very strongly asked the United States to hold off on the attack as well. We had an attack that would be the biggest attack since World War II, and it would have been disastrous for them, Trump said, and they didn't want us to do it. And frankly, Saudi Arabia didn't want it either. They thought that a deal was imminent. Trump said the talks with Iran would begin Monday, August 3rd. But Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said on Monday that Iran is not currently holding talks with the United States, telling reporters Tehran is instead in discussions with Oman about a temporary safe route through the Strait of Hormuz. We currently do not have negotiations with America, they said. He added that Iran has no plans to host foreign delegations or send negotiators abroad in the coming days. At Trump's direction, the United States hit Iran with 13 nights of consecutive airstrikes in July after a memorandum of understanding for the two sides to work on a peace deal fell apart. The pause, which began July 23rd, was intended to give negotiations another chance, but progress on the talks has not materialized. At least 18 service members have died in action during the war in Iran, which has turned increasingly unpopular among Americans. More than two-thirds of Americans surveyed in a Washington Post poll in July said they disapprove of Trump's handling of the war. Trump said the massive attack on Iran that he held off remains an option if Iran resists a deal that meets U.S. demands. We're ready to go anytime we want, Trump said. Would I rather make a deal? I'm not looking to kill people because people die. A lot of people die, and I don't want that. People linked to Wells alleged threats. A California man has been charged with sending threats to a Mississippi judge who has a family connection to Nolan Wells' disappearance and death in July. The case comes as Wells' family and friends have said they faced a flood of threats and harassment amid the investigation into Wells' death. In a separate case, a woman was accused of making a bomb threat targeted at local officials involved in the investigation. On July 29th, law enforcement officials booked Joseph Dumars, who's 27 years old, into a Sacramento County jail as he faces one felony count for threatening Ashley Cole, a chancery judge in Mississippi, according to federal criminal complaint. Cole's son, Warren Hudson, was friends with Wells. Wells, who was 18, went missing while on a boat trip with friends, including Hudson, to Horn Island, a barrier island in Mississippi. Officials found Wells' body 2 days later. The circumstances of Wells' death have been a mystery. Wells' family has demanded transparency and publicly criticized the investigation, saying they fear his death will be written off as an accidental drowning, despite their concerns. The family has launched an independent investigation and commissioned an independent autopsy. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter said investigators didn't initially believe Wells' death was foul play, but added officials continue to investigate. Felony charges alleged graphic threats against the judge. In Facebook posts, Cole had commented on the case and said her son is cooperating with law enforcement. Cole previously said she deactivated her social media account because of death threats she received directed to her and her family. She previously shared screenshots of direct messages from a Facebook account that the FBI said belonged to Demars of Sacramento. Demars is accused of sending several Facebook messages to Cole, including allegedly saying he'd send a package that would blow you away. That it's probably best to have the boys there to see as well, according to screenshots cited in FBI Special Agent Brody Gibson's July 24th affidavit. Demars also alleged that there'll be so much blood everywhere. The FBI traced the Facebook account to several email, Cash App, and Google accounts connected with Demars and an address in Sacramento, the affidavit said. The FBI also identified a phone number consistent with Demars' address that made calls to the Jackson County Chancery Court, where Cole works, on July 11th. The FBI declined to comment. A lawyer for Demars wasn't listed in federal court records. though USA Today has reached out to him in custody, as well as a phone number listed in court records as belonging to him. On July 28th, a grand jury in Mississippi federal court returned an indictment charging Dumars with interstate transmission of threatening communication. Court records indicate it carries a maximum penalty of up to 5 years in prison. He's held in Sacramento County Jail and is ineligible for bail. The Sacramento Bee reported Dumars was arrested in 2019 by police on a suspicion of exposing himself and then trying to kidnap a 13-year-old girl outside a local elementary school. California's Megan laws, which lists sex offenders, indicates he has criminal convictions of 2019 of annoying or molesting a child and in 2020 of harmful matter sent to induce a minor. More allegations of threats as well as investigations continues. In another case on July 31st, an Ohio woman was taken into custody on suspicion of placing bomb threats in Mississippi after Wells' death. Francine Edwards' arrest was first reported by the Sun-Herald. Officials accused Edwards of making threats to the George County Chancery Clerk and later to Jackson County Sheriff's Office on July 23rd, according to federal court records. Edwards is charged with threatening interstate communication in Mississippi federal court. Edwards, who's 41 years old, is held in the Hamilton County Justice Center without bond, jail logs showed. Wells' friends have said they've received threats. Wells' mother, Christine Wansley, has said she's been harassed, including messages in her emails, but also bad reviews at her workplace as a nurse. Lawyers for Wells' family reportedly sent letters to his friends, their families, and local officials instructing not to delete any records while notifying them litigation is reasonably anticipated. An armed citizen and an off-duty state trooper both fired on a man who was carrying out a mass shooting at an Idaho In-N-Out Burger, diverting the attacker and saving lives, the authorities said on August 2nd. The shooting, which killed 3 people and wounded 7, rocked the picturesque southern Idaho city of Twin Falls on August 1st. The violence sent people running for their lives and looking for refuge where they could find it, including several nearby businesses. Twin Falls Police Chief Matthew Hicks said that the trooper and armed citizen who intervened in the attack were heroic. We believe their actions helped drive the suspect away from the scene, preventing further casualties. Hicks said the attacker was a 24-year-old Chad Williams, and he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Hicks did not say anything about a suspected motive. Meanwhile, In-N-Out CEO and owner Lindsay Snyder shared that one of their 3 people killed was an employee who was taking care of customers. My heart is broken, my chest is heavy, my eyes burnt from tears I've shed, Snyder posted on Facebook, adding that the shooter took the precious lives of our associate and customers, innocent people who never saw it coming. How did it unfold? It was a busy Saturday afternoon in the newly opened In-N-Out location in Twin Falls when police responded to reports of an active shooter. It was a very chaotic scene, said Hicks at a news conference. We have literally hundreds of people that were in some way, shape, or form in the area of this restaurant at the time. He said the names of the victims won't be released yet to ensure that all the loved ones have been notified. Lane Cohn, a local man who captured the cell phone video of the armed citizens firing on the suspect, said he was on his way home from work and sitting at a stoplight when shots began flying all around him and into a car just feet in front of him. Cohn said he saw the shooter about 30 feet away wielding what looks like a semi-automatic rifle and emptying several magazines as he seemingly fired randomly at people in their cars through the In-N-Out drive-through window. Then the armed citizen emerged and began firing at the shooter. He made remarks before authorities alleged Williams was the attacker. They're both running around trying to dodge bullets. There's people running all over the place, freaking out, obviously. There was this girl who'd been shot, obviously. Another In-N-Out worker was trying to drag her through the vehicles. He said the man trying to rescue his co-worker was hysterical and that she appeared shot through the middle of her chest. People were running out, crying and screaming. It was very scary. Kayla Foister of Kenai, Alaska, was posted on Facebook that she was getting food at the In-N-Out drive-through when shots broke out about 5 cars from her. We ran and hid at a Dick's Sporting Goods for 2.5 hours, hearing shots go on and off till it was clear. One of seven people injured, 2 were treated and reached the hospital. 3 others were listed as stable and 2 remained in critical condition. While authorities have not released the names of anyone killed or wounded, family and friends identified one of the injured victims as Terry Dudley. North Star Taxi, which operates in Twin Falls and surrounding areas, identified Dudley as one of their drivers. Well, you're listening to the reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30, and it's on to the money section. It's not your imagination. Sales taxes are on the rise. Reports show shifting tax landscapes in the states. Sales taxes are creeping up. Income taxes are inching down. That's the takeaway from the new report from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, which portrays a shifting tax landscape in the states. Since 1990, states have raised sales taxes 68 times, but lowered them only 29 times. Over the same period, state lawmakers have cut top personal income tax rates 210 times and slashed corporate rates 268 times. But states have raised income taxes just 73 times and corporate tax rates only 42 times. To some policy experts, the trend signals the victory of one philosophy over taxation over another. Many states are cutting progressive tax rates, which tax larger incomes at higher rates, and they're relying more on regressive tax rates, such as sales tax, which puts a larger burden on lower income taxpayers. The policy shift favors wealthy Americans and corporations, according to a report from ITEP, a left-leaning think tank. It tends to hurt lower-income Americans. People should be concerned about this, said David Cooper, Director of State Policy and Research at the Economic Policy Institute. It has certainly contributed to the skyrocketing inequality in our country, but states are not moving in lockstep. While many states roll back income taxes for corporations and top earners, other states are pushing hard in the opposite direction. California's controversial billionaire tax would impose a one-time 5% wealth tax on the state's billionaires. Massachusetts and Washington State have approved similar measures. We're seeing this stark divergence where high tax states are getting higher and lower tax states are getting lower, said Catherine Logan, Vice President of State Tax Policy at the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. Competing tax philosophies have increasingly polarized the states, largely along political lines. Policy experts say while some blue states push progressive taxation to the limit, many red states are moving just as swiftly to lower and flatten their tax rates. Over time, some states have slashed corporate and personal income tax rates while raising the sales tax rate. In 11 states, all 3 of those things have happened. Those states are Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Carolina, and Ohio. 26 states spanning the political spectrum have increased sales tax rates since 1990. Only 4 states have cut them. In addition to the 11 above, states with higher sales tax rates are California, Indiana, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Vermont, Wyoming, Virginia, and Wyoming. In Kansas, the sales tax rate has risen from 4.25% to 6.5%. In Iowa, Michigan, and Vermont from 4 to 6%. In Indiana from 5 to 7%. In Arkansas from 4 to 6.5%. Sales tax have drifted gradually higher over multiple decades. By contrast, the flat tax revolution in state income tax rates unfolded quickly. Since 2020, 8 states have passed laws to move from progressive to flat income tax rates, lowering the overall tax rate in the process. Winners and losers. Critics say the trend toward lower income taxes favors wealthy people, and rising sales tax, by contrast, tends to hurt low-income households because they spend a larger share of their income on consumer goods. And the anti-tax movement began after the 2010 midterms. Buy, B-U-Y, or buy, B-Y-E. Bitcoin's missing investors tell a bigger story. federal regulators and policymakers have shepherded cryptocurrencies from the fringes of investing into the mainstream, introducing digital assets to exchange-traded funds and retirement accounts. A new report suggests, however, that crypto to investors remains relatively rare. Roughly 17% of American adults have ever owned crypto, according to a report from the Urban Institute. But only about 9% of Americans own crypto now. In other words, nearly half of America's crypto investors have bailed. The report draws from a survey of more than 3,000 adults in January. It's the latest reading on the reach of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency at a time when digital assets are accessible to any casual investor. Donald Trump has promoted crypto for ETF investors and retirement savers, pledging to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet. The campaign helped push the price of Bitcoin to record highs in 2025, but Bitcoin has shed roughly half its value since then, and a crush of new crypto owners apparently hasn't arrived. There's not a big wave of new crypto investors, said Alex Carchidi, contributor to crypto analysis at the Motley Fool. In fact, many of the professional crypto investors have been leaving the market or hibernating in some way since the market collapsed in October. Despite regulatory push, crypto remains on the margins. The Urban Institute's findings align with earlier research, which has tracked crypto adoption. According to the Fed, crypto adoption may have peaked 4 years early in 2021, when 12% of Americans bought, sold, or otherwise held it. By contrast, roughly 62% of Americans own stocks. The numbers suggest crypto may not be spreading across the investing landscape, despite a continuing campaign to promote it. People still view it as a more specialized asset class, and I think that volatility and these periodically huge declines are probably keeping people away. Clothing swaps offer thrifting frugality and reduce waste by giving discarded clothing new life. Want to learn how to take clothes you're done wearing from your closets and drawers and refresh your wardrobe all for free? This is a column by Betty Lynn Fisher. Let me tell you about the concept of clothing swaps, where you bring clothes that are still in good shape, but you're just done with, and other people do the same. And then you get to shop at the gathering for new treasures. The concept of swaps have been around for a long time. Think of bartering or just trading clothes with a friend. But the idea of organized swaps is growing in popularity as more people embrace sustainability, thrifting, and frugality. More Americans are also trying to stretch their dollars as they try to deal with inflation and rising costs. There are different kinds of clothing swaps, or even swaps of items like housewares. You can plan one with just a group of your friends or participate in a larger swap organized by someone in your community. Here's how I got new-to-me clothing. Recently, I gathered 16 pieces of clothing I was no longer using and went to a clothing swap in my community in Akron, Ohio. I left the swap with 23 pieces of clothing, but it ended up with 26 pieces, new pieces from my wardrobe after I got home, thanks to my adult daughter who came with me because I liked a few of her cast-offs. I've been a fan of garage sales and thrifting since before it was trendy. My two kids grew up tagging along with me and continue to enjoy them as young adults. It's become a full family activity now that I got my husband hooked in recent years. Now we've added estate sales. I'm a veteran of clothing swaps as well, participating in several since 2020, and I love them. And I was happy to have my daughter join me recently when she was visiting from out of town. It's just an amazing experience for both of us, not just because we got a chance to bond over new-to-us clothes, but because it embraced our belief in reducing waste by giving our discarded clothes a new life with someone else. I like clothing swaps because I know that my clothes that I'm giving are most likely to go to someone who actually wants them, my daughter said, rather than if I donate them to a big thrift store, they might just get put in a bag and sent elsewhere. While at a local swap, I overheard a conversation with two women about a beautiful vintage quilted jacket. One commented about how wonderful the other looked in the jacket, which she happened to have brought to the swap. Of course, I interviewed them to learn about the full circle moment later on. My daughter's best find was a cute dress that was new with tags. She didn't know a thing about the brand until she got home and found a similar pattern being sold on the store's website for $218, so it's an understatement to say it was a great find. Altogether, she brought 12 items, left with 13, and ultimately kept 10, giving the other 3 items to me. Typically, at swaps, you take as many items you bring, since the swap we've attended also have so many clothes left over. We're encouraged to take as much as we want toward the end of the event, and the rest is donated to charity. That's usually when I put something in my bag that I might not otherwise try. I love so many of the things I got at the swap, but I say a cute purple and white striped old Navy pantsuit was my favorite. How I learned about clothing swaps. Let me back up and explain how I entered into this recent event. I first met the swap I attended in 2014 when she was the owner of an Akron clothing boutique. I was a reporter and consumer columnist for Akron Beacon News Journal. We reconnected in 2020 when I attended my very first clothing swap, which she organized. When she owned her boutique, which originally featured only new clothes, she started to feel more passionate about having secondhand clothing, especially as she noted the declining quality of many of her new items. She hosted her first clothing swap in 2018. She now tries to host a women's clothing swap once a season, and often partners with local friends who let her use their venue space for free. Clothing swaps have grown in popularity, particularly as more people embrace sustainability and thrifting. The idea of thrifting and swapping for clothes is also less taboo now, and people from all budgets participate. Some clothing swaps charge for tickets, and some organizers charge to help compensate them for logistics. Anderson has experimented by limiting her community swaps and finds that 40 is a good number, but she has always kept the swap a free event. The point is to get people familiar with the idea of not always having to purchase new, and to find some things that you really like. To look for a clothing swap near you, search on social media or try an internet search. My daughter and I have always enjoyed thrifting together, so I was excited when I could include her in my clothing swap passion. She likes the sustainability aspect and worries about spending too much money on clothes she may not want in a few years. She doesn't want to buy in too much fast fashion stuff or contribute to more clothes just going to the landfill. She's also tried to find clothing swaps near where she lives, but hasn't found the right one. A recent one exclusively marketed to Generation Z. And though my daughter's of that generation, she wasn't sure if the swap was right for her. Some people make clothing swaps sound a little more intimidating, like maybe the stuff that I want won't be good enough. She likes the swaps we've gone to because participants have been of various ages and looking for different clothing styles. A bonus for me at this recent swap was witnessing the full circle moment when one woman was trying on a beautiful quilted jacket and another woman said she brought it. Annette Rizopoulos, 83 years old, was invited to her first swap by her daughter-in-law. The jacket she tried on and kept was once owned by the late great-aunt of a 31-year-old Mallory Pills, also of Akron. Pills told Rizopoulos she was gifted the jacket by her great-aunt when Pills and her family were helping purge her wardrobe. Rizopoulos says she picked the jacket up to try since her sister had a similar jacket that she'd bought brand new. I thought, maybe I'll doctor this up a little bit to make it a little more funky looking. She said she loved giving the quilted jacket a new home. I'm totally a recycler in every aspect of my life. So how do you host a clothing swap? Here are some tips. The host sets the tone. If you're hosting a larger swap, set a limit on how many items guests can bring. Otherwise, it can become a lot of work unless you have plenty of dedicated helpers. And you set the rules. At a larger swap, Anderson slows down the process by letting everyone choose one item during the first 5 minutes, 2 items the second 5 minutes, and after that, guests can take as many items as they brought. If people stick around after, Anderson says they're welcome to take more. This slows things down at the beginning, gives everyone an opportunity to find something really great. And then it's a free-for-all. With a smaller swap, he's more laid back about time limits, and people can lay out their clothes and start swapping without following a protocol. And be specific on what to bring and what not to bring. Anderson says you can get creative and choose the theme, vintage wear, active wear, or holiday, for example. And Anderson usually doesn't have a theme, but asks people not to bring items with stains, especially in the underarm area, worn out or ripped clothing, socks, or pantyhose. anything you wouldn't give to a friend. Make sure to donate any remaining items after the swap so nothing goes to waste. Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45. And here's Ask Johnny's column by Johnny C. Taylor, a HR specialist. Growth can look different for each worker. Question: one of my direct reports people is a strong performer but has no interest in becoming a manager or taking on additional leadership responsibilities. I want everyone on my team to continue developing, but I'm worried that they're limiting their potential. How should I approach this? Asked Youssef. And Johnny C. Taylor's answer: first, don't assume a lack of interest in leadership means a lack of ambition. Ambition comes in many forms. Some employees aspire to lead people. Others find fulfillment becoming experts in their craft as highly skilled individual contributors. Organizations need both to succeed. There's also an important distinction between an employee who lacks ambition and one who has become disengaged. One is a matter of career preference. The other is a performance issue. Your job as manager is to determine which you are seeing. Before you draw conclusions, get curious. Is the employee lacking confidence? Have they stopped feeling challenged? Are expectations unclear? Do they see a future with the organization? Or do they simply define success differently than you do? Ask questions instead of making assumptions. Coaching employees to thinking through challenges on their own builds confidence, capability, and ownership over time. Now let me come back to an important point. Not every employee wants to become a people manager, and that's okay. Leadership is a career choice. Growth is an expectation. Growth doesn't have to be upward. Today's careers are rarely linear. Employees move laterally, build new skills, explore cross-functional experiences, and deepen their expertise before taking on greater responsibility, if they choose to do so. Success isn't measured by climbing the same ladder at the same pace. It's about continuing to learn, to contribute, and create value throughout your career. Choosing not to pursue leadership is perfectly acceptable. Choosing not to perform at a high level is not. Every employee should continue to meet expectations. You should contribute fully and develop the skills needed to succeed in their role. As a manager, your responsibility is to create an environment where that growth can happen. Set clear expectations. Provide regular coaching and feedback. Give employees opportunity to solve problems independently and stretch beyond their comfort zone. Recognize progress along the way. Small wins build confidence and reinforce the behaviors you want to encourage. Then allow employees to decide how they want to grow based on their strengths, interests, and goals. Growth is a shared responsibility. Managers create opportunities, remove barriers, and support development. Employees must engage with those opportunities and take ownership of their own growth. Great managers don't define success by how many employees have become leaders. They define success by how many reach their full potential. Your role isn't to decide what success should look like for every employee. It's to create an environment where every employee has the opportunity to succeed, grow, and contribute at their highest level. Tattoo for interview recruiting stunt stirs up a backlash. One San Francisco artificial intelligence startup's out-of-the-box recruiting stunt has left a black mark on its hiring efforts. Lemon Lime CEO Jordan Zietz guaranteed instant job interviews to anyone who showed up in the flesh at a company party and got a lemon lime tattoo. 7 people took him up on the offer. It's not the first time a business has rewarded people for inking their interest. Food and retail brands have offered food for life and other VIP perks to customers with tattoos of logos or mascots. A New York City real estate brokerage firm even offered employees a 15% increase in commission if they got a tattoo of the company logo. But it was an unusual and controversial tit-for-tat gambit for employer headhunting job ad candidates without the promise of a job offer. Being committed to our mission is paramount. Zietz said he hosted the Tattoo Festoon event to meet exceptional people and find out which of them is just as crazy as we are. If we are bold, we take risks, and we do things that haven't been done before, he wrote on LinkedIn. Being committed to our mission is paramount. One startup founder wants the world to know she didn't get a lemon lime tattoo. She says she was flooded with questions after the company posted a photo without her consent of her getting inked. I got a personal tattoo, and I love it, she said on LinkedIn. Yes, almost everyone else got a lemon lime tattoo, and it's slightly wild. The job market cannot be this cooked. The hiring gimmick didn't go over well. The internet roasted lemon lime for exploiting power dynamics in a challenging job market. The job market cannot be this cooked that people are getting tattoos for an interview, one person said on LinkedIn. That's crazy, and definitely not on my 2026 recruiting bingo card, another said. Demanding that job applications permanently alter their bodies with a company logo simply to secure an interview? One person commented, it's a textbook display of predatory corporate behavior, a gross abuse of power, and a profound violation of professional ethics. I messed up. A mea culpa soon followed. I messed up, Zietz said. Excuse me. In an apology posted on LinkedIn, he declined a USA Today request for comment. We offered fresh tattoos and said we'd be happy to interview anyone who got one. What I thought would be a fun, memorable way to meet people was, in reality, reckless and instead came across as tying a permanent job tattoo to a job opportunity, which showed poor judgment, he wrote. Even though participants chose their own tattoos and no one was asked to get our logo, I should have understood the pressure and the power dynamic created by connecting tattoos to hiring. Zietz said that Lemon Lime has spoken with everyone who participated and offered to pay for tattoo removals for anyone facing any delayed regret. He also clarified that tattoos at the party were not required for job interviews. I'm sorry that to the people we put in that position and to everyone who expected better from me, he said. There's no clever explanation here. I got carried away, and I was wrong. Well, singles get creative to fight pricey date scene. Some opt out, others scale back on expenses. Dating can be hard on the heart. It can also be hard on the wallet. Faced with inflation and other economic pressures, some singles are opting not to date right now or skating back on dates to affordable activities. Instead of going to a fancy restaurant or a bar, they're grabbing coffee and going for a walk or sitting in the park. And like everything in modern dating, this phenomena of going on budget-friendly dates has spawned a new term. Actually, two. One is infladating and the other is dateflation. Though some might be disappointed to hear that singles are sidelining pricey dates, dating and relationship experts say the infladating and dateflation mentality can actually present a positive shift for people's love lives by pushing them to get creative and prioritize connection over financial flexing. The reality is a lot of people are struggling in today's economy, and they're opting out of dating completely because it's too expensive, says Amy Chan, a dating coach and the author of Unsingle, How to Date Smarter and Create a Love That Lasts. I see this more in my male clients who feel embarrassed that they cannot take a date out to a nice restaurant. If the antidote for that is infladating, then I'm all for it. Dateflation is out of control, so now people are infladating. Finances touch nearly every aspect of life to varying degrees, and your dating life is no exception. Not only does the state of the economy impact the kinds of dates people go on, but it also influences who people decide to go out with. As dating becomes more expensive, people become more selective about who they choose to take out. People have a different calculation of which dates to go on, and not just what they're doing on a date, but who is worthy of that date, said Damona Hoffman, a dating coach and the author of F the Fairy Tale, Rewrite Myths, the Dating Myths, and Live Your Own Love Story. So if you're going to go on a more expensive date, you're not going to do that on a first or second date. You're going to wait to see that there's some possibility of this relationship going somewhere before you're willing to make a monetary investment in someone. The reality, Chan says, that many daters actually prefer cheap dates anyway, especially in the beginning of a relationship. After all, do you really want to be locked into a 5-course meal with someone you don't even know yet? Keeping dates low cost and low stakes, she says, can help put yourself and your date at ease while setting the stage for what a first date ought to be, which is a vibe check. It should be short and sweet, Chan said the first date. That way, if you don't have any connection, you can leave after an hour. Or if there's a connection, you can go to a second place or activity to keep momentum going. Either way, if it goes well, then you create anticipation for the next date, which can be something like a dinner. Simple, cheap outings also allow you to get to know your date with fewer distractions. Without the pomp and circumstance of a pricey evening, you can look for what really matters. Is this person thoughtful? Do you like being around them? And if someone is over-investing in an early date, buying fancy meals or taking you on a luxurious excursion before really knowing you, it can be love bombing. Beware of a person who pulls out all the stops on the first date, Chan says. You might be impressed when someone takes you to an extravagant dinner, showers you with grand gestures, and brings over-the-top romance to a first meeting. We're taught to read that as romantic, but think about it. They don't even know you yet. That level of intensity hasn't been earned by anything real between you. It's a performance and often says more about how they want to be perceived than how they feel about you. You've been listening to readings of articles from USA Today for Tuesday, August 4th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readings this first hour has been Alan Blackburn.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
will continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Dave. Pochettino signs up to rekindle USA magic. Mauricio Pochettino has unfinished business with the U.S. men's national soccer team. Pochettino has signed a new 4-year contract with U.S. Soccer, the federation announced August 3rd. This will be his first full World Cup cycle with the U.S. men's national team, having taken over the team less than 2 years before this summer's tournament in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It's a great opportunity because the potential is there, Pochettino said during a small roundtable with reporters before his deal was announced. We were so close. That gap with the best teams in the world is not so big. To reduce that gap, I think it's possible. I think it's possible because we have the talent, we have the organization. U.S. Soccer hired Pochettino, a successful European club manager, in September 2024 in the hopes of making a big splash at only its second Men's World Cup on home soil. The move paid off in the early rounds, with the U.S. public jumping on the bandwagon for an engaging and entertaining team. The U.S. men's team won for the first time since 2010, then beat Bosnia and Herzegovina for its second-ever knockout win. Its 10 goals was the most in the World Cup for the U.S. men's national team. The magic thing that happened to the World Cup and the connection with the people, with the organization, was a key point to make that decision, Pochettino said. But the Americans imploded in the round of 16 against Belgium, the 4-1 loss to the Red Devils, its worst in the World Cup in 20 years. With a full World Cup cycle in front of him, Pochettino hopes to build a team that can handle that level of pressure. The vision for the future demands to us to have different approach and to set a different principle, Pochettino said. That is why we're working with the last few weeks and try to reveal our way all different areas to try to provide better quality, better capacity, better knowledge, better in every single aspect, add different qualities to the new organization. We need to start from zero. Our relationship from now to the goal is going to be the next World Cup. Though Pochettino's main responsibility will be the U.S. men's national team, he also will have a hand in the national team pipeline, youth soccer system, and coaching education. One of his priorities will be bringing in younger players and making clear his expectations from the start. Pochettino and his staff didn't have the luxury of time after coming on board less than 2 years before this last World Cup. Though he made strides in changing both the culture and the playing style, there were some things he could not change. Now he can. The good things is that we have the experience and then the knowledge about all the players that were working with us. And of course, now we can open the pool to bring players that were playing the last year or now. They are playing more in the MLS, he said. But also for players that maybe we didn't have time to assess during that process that was very compact and very short period. It's nice to give the possibility to perform and to be part of that next process. Unlike this last World Cup, the U.S. men's national team will have to qualify for the 2030 tournament. The U.S. is also expected to serve as host of the 2028 Copa America, as well as the Gold Cup in 2027 and 2029. We need to start from the day one thinking that we are going to play World Cup games. When Pochettino was hired, many expected this would be a one-and-done stint with a national team. He was highly successful as a club coach, leading Tottenham to its first Champions League final and winning a French league title with Paris Saint-Germain, and spoke fondly of returning to Europe. Despite talks with AC Milan, about its vacancy in the spring, Pochettino said during the World Cup that helping change soccer's place in the United States appealed to him. He confirmed after the World Cup that he's been offered a new contract, and he and the Federation have spent the last few weeks finalizing the details. Pochettino does not come cheap. He made more than $5 million in his first 7 months on the job, and his new contract will again be offset in significant part by Citadel CEO Ken Griffin. We know we have a lot of work to do to achieve our clear ambitions, including competing to win men's World Cups and having soccer become the most played sport in every community. I couldn't be more excited that Mauricio and team are committed to partnering with all of us to do the hard work to bring those ambitions to life, U.S. Soccer CEO J.T. Batson said in the release of the announcement of Pochettino's new deal. Adults, not the players, have fed name, image, likeness era disaster, from Matt Hayes, college football columnist for USA Today. Kyle Whittingham was talking about the drama surrounding Michigan football over the past handful of seasons and made a remarkable argument in the process, one that has been long overlooked while swirling in the short attention span theater of society. The problems at Michigan weren't player-related, they were coach and administration related. The players are doing what they're supposed to do, Whittingham said last week during Big Ten Media Days. They're living their lives the right way, and they're accountable. Unfortunately, the drama came from the adults. Now let's take it one step further. The problems facing football specifically and college sports generally aren't player-related either. They're all at the feet of the adults in the room. The coaches, administration, and leadership of schools and their respective conferences. There aren't rules in the Protect College Sports Act aimed directly at players whose actions are in response to the adults soiling everything they touch. There is, however, a Lane Kiffin rule, one that prevents coaches from leaving a school for another before the end of the season. If that rule were in place in 2025, maybe Ole Miss wins the national title and maybe Kiffin is still in Oxford. Everywhere we turn, those in charge have fumbled the ball over and over in the previous 5 years of the name, image, and likeness era. Worse, they've done it at times through the guise of blaming others. It's not me, it's him or her. Former Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh knew low-level staffer Connor Stalions was illegally scouting and turning a blind eye. For the last time, Harbaugh, the control freak of control freaks, isn't going to allow some schmo on his sideline screaming out play calls to his coordinators, who then adjust and change the calls without knowing exactly what's going on. No matter what Stalions intimates on the Netflix special where he was paid to tell his side of the story. Former Michigan coach Sharon Moore had an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate staffer. Soon-to-be former athletic director Ward Manuel was a traffic cop with blinders for the last 5 years. But it doesn't end there in these 5 years of NIL infamy. Texas A&M fired Jimbo Fisher and paid him $77 million not to coach. LSU paid Brian Kelly $53 million, and Penn State owed James Franklin $49 million before Franklin let the university off the hook for $40 large. Florida hired and fired 2 coaches, Dan Mullen and Billy Napier, in the NIL era, a combined payout of nearly $34 million not to coach. All told, 56 of the 68 Power Conference teams, including Notre Dame, have made a coaching change in the NIL era from 2021 to the present. Chew on that while you're blaming players for the ills of college football because they found a judge in Western Virginia to give them free player movement, for the time being anyway. Since 2021, the adults in the room formed an alliance, quote unquote, of like minds to protect each other before one in the alliance stabbed the others in the back, a dastardly move by the Big Ten that led to the Power Five conferences eating one of their own. Since 2021, the adults left the first unbeaten Power Conference team, Florida State, out of the college football playoff. Speaking of the CFP, since 2021, the adults have had a 12-team format everyone agreed to until the Alliance torpedoed it, and then the Big Ten suddenly wanted it again after the aforementioned gut punch to the ACC and the Pac-12 eventually expanded the Big Ten's numbers to 18 teams. So the CFP expanded, and the adults couldn't see the inherent flaws of the system until it was too late. Like Boise State receiving a first-round bye, or my God, how in the world could they not have seen this? An upset in the ACC championship game left Tulane and James Madison University in the playoff, and Texas and Notre Dame sitting at home. Now the adults can't agree on the number of future teams in the flipping thing because the adults in the Big Ten don't trust the SEC, and the adults in the SEC don't trust anyone. Since 2029, the adults have begged Congress to get involved with the new NIL world because it was, choose your drama, unsustainable and needed guardrails and was dying a slow death. A slow death, mind you, where the power conferences are raking in nearly $4 billion annually in media rights revenue. So Congress jumped into the fray, and I don't have to tell you what happened when Congress sinks its teeth into anything. You get an 11th hour agreement pushed through last Friday where too many have no idea what's in the damn bill. But you know first you pass it, and then you find out what's in it. Thanks, Nancy. If that is, the thing can even reach a vote this week in Congress. Also, by the way, adults in the room, decides to take a month off for what reason no one in these beautiful United States can comprehend. Meanwhile, Brendan Sorsby gambles on his team and other various sports thousands of times, and you'd think amateur sports is caving upon itself. Various states' attorney generals were getting involved for the love of drama. So the adults in the room had to rip that weed from the pristine and perfectly manicured garden of joy that is college sports. None of that is on our watch, bub. We're too busy trying to hoard $4 billion annually. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 17 minutes after the hour. Dabo Swinney keeps looking back as sport moves on. It's impossible to forget how good Dabo Swinney was in his prime. It's impossible to forget because Dabo won't let us forget. Swinney used ACC Media Days as an opportunity to remind everyone of how good he used to be. We've won 11 conferences and national championships in the last 15 years, Swinney told The Athletic in July, amid some serious navel-gazing. I think the next closest coach has 6. Who's counting, right? Well, Dabo is. We've had 15 winning seasons, Swinney said as he recited his resume. 13 10-plus win seasons, 14 9-plus win seasons, and then you have a season like last year, and that's kind of what everybody wants to focus on, and I get that. Swinney's giving off some serious, huge frees at Auburn vibes. That's not a complaint. While failing miserably throughout 3 seasons at Auburn, Freeze spared no chance to remind us he used to be a good coach. Honestly, Nick Saban is incredible, but I should have 4 wins against him, Freeze said, 1 year into an Auburn tenure that included losses to New Mexico State and Kentucky. It's true, a decade or so ago, Swinney and Freeze gave Saban fits. Ah, memories. How's that working out for Freeze nowadays? Well, he's got a buyout check and a tea time. Is Swinney willing to evolve at Clemson? Swinney can keep his golf bag in the garage for now, but the current state of his Clemson program is closer to 2020-25 Auburn than it is to the 2015-19 Clemson. After Freeze beat Saban in back-to-back years with an innovative up-tempo system built on run-pass option plays, Saban hired Lane Kiffin to help Alabama evolve its offense. When Clemson's success threatened to snuff out Alabama's superiority, Saban rallied by bringing in his best run of quarterbacks. That's how Saban became the greatest of all time. He kept evolving. He wasn't content to say, well, I used to be a great coach. Let me recite my resume. If Alabama ever wasn't the standard, it ate him up. Finally, when the sport went the direction of pay-to-play and transfer fee agency, Saban decided he didn't want to participate. So he hung up his whistle rather than linger on the sidelines, let his record slump, and prattle on about his past accomplishments. Maybe Swinney should take a hint. He's not naturally built for this era. He's also not evolving to meet the moment. Swinney will be raked over the coals if his QB pick doesn't work. What about the idea of a transfer quarterback at Clemson? The last 2 national champions, heck, the last 2 national runner-ups, started transfer quarterbacks. Swinney wants nothing to do with that. We weren't going to get a shiny object at quarterback. Oof, that sounds a lot like what Freeze said before the 2024 season. Freeze didn't think a transfer quarterback was worth $1 million investment in name, image, and likeness bucks. If you're wondering how that worked out, didn't I mention Freeze now has extra time for lining up par putts? That's how it worked out. Swinney's general disinterest in transfers might be defensible if he were calling in blue-chip recruiting classes. He's not. Clemson entered a recruiting free fall after the NIL genie got out of the bottle. Nobody can say Tyler from Spartanburg didn't warn us that Swinney's career is on the downslope. Swinney is one of the greatest player development coaches of his generation. Even after Clemson flopped to a 7-6 record last season, 9 Tigers were selected in the NFL draft. That tells you 2 things. Clemson should have won more than 7 games, but also, Swinney didn't swallow a bunch of stupid pills. He used to be a great coach. Just ask him. And he's all sending guys to the pros. But he's swimming upstream by signing 3- and 4-star recruits and trying to compete against proven portal talent like Miami's freshly purchased quarterback Darian Mensah. I don't know how to be anything other than me, Swinney said. True, Swinney is who he is, and that's sort of become part of the problem. What worked in 2016 or 2018 doesn't work the same way in 2026, especially when you aren't signing quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence. Swinney admitted if his decision to roll in with in-house veteran quarterback Christopher Vezina doesn't pan out, he'll get raked over the coals. If he catches any heat, Swinney will default to the Hugh playbook. He'll remind us how good he used to be. On the PGA Tour, Thor Bjornsson breaks through with a win. Propelled by a chip-in birdie at number 12 and a fist-clenching birdie at the last, Michael Thorbjornsen shot a final round bogey-free 7-under 63 at Detroit Golf Club to win the Rocket Classic by 2 strokes over Xander Schauffele and win for the first time on the PGA Tour. The feeling's unbelievable, said Thorbjornsen, who had faltered down the stretch when he'd been in contention before this season. It's kind of got to the point a little bit of it's ever going to happen. Thorbjornsen, 24, joined the tour as a rookie after finishing number 1 in the 2024 PGA Tour University ranking, earning membership through the 2025 season. Last year, he finished number 70. This marked Thorbjornsen's 65th career start on the tour. Last week, Jackson Koivun, 23, a PGA Tour U accelerated grad, won the 3M Open in just his third career start on tour as a pro. Thorbjornsen, who shot his career low in the final round August 2nd, including coming home in 30, said, "Don't forget about me when talking about the top young players in the game. The last time two Americans aged 24 or under won in back-to-back weeks on the tour, Xander Schauffele and Bryson DeChambeau in 2017, who both have gone on to win 2 major titles in their career." How has access to the PGA Tour through the PGA Tour U been a boon to Koivun, Thorbjornsen, and Ludvig Åberg before them? Having that pathway to the PGA Tour, I mean, it's changed all of our lives, Thorbjornsen said. It's changed the way we kind of approach college golf and amateur golf, and I think that was definitely necessary. Much has been expected from Thorbjornsen, who won the 2018 U.S. Junior Amateur, representing the U.S. in the 2019 Junior President's Cup, starred at Stanford University, and finished 4th as an amateur at the Tour's 2022 Travelers Championship. Thorbjornsen entered the final round of the Rocket Classic trailing by 4 and rolled in a 12-foot birdie putt to fuel his charge up the leaderboard in the Motor City. He wedged to inside 5 feet at the 4th for another birdie and did the rest of his damage on the back 9. "It was such a battle playing with some great players," Thorbjornsen said. "Everyone was in the mix after 9 holes." At 10, his wedge from 127 yards to 7 feet and sank the putt. Then, after getting out of position, he opened his wedge up wide and slid the blade under the ball, holing the delicate shot from 35 feet right of the green. "That's a 1 in 100 shot right there," CBS Sports lead golf analyst Trevor Immelman said. Thorbjornsen tacked on birdies at the par 5 14th and planted a short iron at the par 3 15th to 7 feet to become the first player to reach 17 under. That proved to be the difference. The slew of players were in the trophy hunt. Michael Brennan birdied 2 of the first 3 holes to get to 16 under, but hit his tee shot out of bounds and made double bogey at number 7 and never recovered. He shot 73 and finished tied for 15th. Rasmus Højgaard was attempting to become the first Dane to win on the PGA Tour. He made the cut on the number at 3 under and then vaulted into the final group by tying the course record of 9 under 61. He eagled the par 5 4th and improved to 16 under with a birdie at 10, but stalled from there and shot 68 to finish 4th, his best result of the season. Xander Schauffele, 65, held the lead briefly until he made his lone bogey of the day at 13 and finished 2nd. "Mikey just played. He played incredible," Schauffele said of the champion. "He never let up. If you look at his stretch for the last 12 holes, he played incredible golf." Riley, the 54-hole leader, made 3 bogeys in his first 6 holes, but settled down and rebounded to reach 16 under with a birdie at number 14, but bogeyed 17 and settled for 3rd, his best result of the season. Thorbjornsen stepped up and hit one fairway after another down the stretch when it mattered most. He ranked 1st in strokes gained tee to green for the final round and 2nd for the week. You watch some of the golf this year, seeing Cameron Young and Ryan Fox hit great drives when they needed it most, and I think that's the mentality you have to have, Thorbjornsen said. like, I'm going to hit the best shot of my life right now, and if it goes poorly, it goes poorly. But that's all you see, and I really stuck to that. Theo Bjornsson rolled in a 25-foot birdie putt at the longest putt he holed all week, to finish at 18 under 262 and became the fifth first-time winner of the season. Perfect pace, perfect read, he said, and a perfect conclusion to his week. Here's a review of some of the trades made in Major League Baseball. The Toronto Blue Jays trade Soriano. Jose Soriano goes to the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays receive right-handed pitcher Jose Soriano. The Angels receive shortstop Arun Nimala and offensive fielder Eddie Micheletti and right-handed pitcher Angel Rivero. The Blue Jays trade grade was B. The Angels trade grade was A-. Kevin Gausman to the Cubs. Cubs receive right-handed pitcher Kevin Gausman. Blue Jays receive outfielder Brett Bateman and infielder Ty Sutherland. Cubs trade A grade. Blue Jays trade C+. Freddie Peralta to the Rays. The Rays receive right-handed pitcher Freddie Peralta. The Mets receive outfielder Aiden Smith, right-handed pitcher Gary Hill, and second baseman Emilian Petrie. The Rays' grade is B, and the Mets' grade is C. Luis Garcia to the Yankees. The Yankees receive first baseman designated hitter Luis Garcia Jr. The Nationals receive right-handed pitcher Jake Bird, right-handed pitcher Ben Gravel, right-handed pitcher Giovanni Cruz, and right-handed pitcher Jack Siebert. The Yankees' trade grade is A-. The Nationals' trade grade is B. Joe Adell to the Guardians. Guardians receive outfielder Joe Adell, and the Angels receive Jacob Cozart, catcher. The Guardians' trade grade is A-. The Angels' trade grade is C. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. These are articles from the Life section of USA Today. After 6 months, the Nancy Guthrie case is still open. As Nancy Guthrie's status as a missing person surpasses the 6-month mark, many are wondering what the future of the investigation will look like. The 84-year-old mother of Today anchor Savannah Guthrie entered her home in Tucson, Arizona just before 10 p.m. on January 31st and was never seen again. Her family reported her missing the next day, and authorities have labeled the case a suspected kidnapping for ransom. Former detective and Sheriff Mike Toth, now a private investigator, after years of experience in law enforcement, tells USA Today the Nancy Guthrie case may never be closed. If they've still got evidence and leads to follow, they're going to continue to run those down, he says. The case wouldn't grow cold until there's just no leads whatsoever and they've run out of ideas. Then they have to wait until something else comes up, and sometimes that takes years before another piece of evidence comes or a witness comes forward. On February 2nd, one day after Guthrie disappeared, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos declared her house a crime scene. But on February 3rd, Clara Mongoya and Richard Rulas, reporters for the Arizona Republic, part of the USA Today network, were able to walk up the driveway and witness dried blood droplets on the tiles at the front entrance of the home. Ruelas and Mongoya reported there was no yellow tape surrounding the property, which authorities had turned over to Guthrie's family. They also said there was an Amazon package addressed to Guthrie on the porch. Toth notes that the first 48 to 72 hours of a missing persons investigation is an extremely important time to gather evidence before the odds of solving the case significantly drop. In this case, he says, some things weren't done probably the way they should have been done. The FBI also stepped in, later uncovering a key piece of evidence, footage of a masked, armed person appearing to tamper with Guthrie's front doorbell camera the night she vanished. What's uncommon is where all the FBI resources came in. Like, how did they do that there? Toth said. Though the FBI is always willing to help, he says, the agency's involvement from so early on allowed expert assistance. Not all cases have the same stage of investigation. They have resources that other agencies don't have, Toth said. Their evidence law lab is the best in the world. I mean, they get other countries asking them to come investigate stuff and process evidence. But FBI Director Kash Patel views things differently. He told Fox News Digital July 23rd that delays in the agency's involvement have resulted in the loss of potential valuable doorbell camera footage. Then there were the ransom notes. Within the first week, ransom notes were sent out to media outlets. One from February 6th, reported by NBC News, ABC News, and CBS News, said Guthrie was dead. Savannah made numerous videos on her social media speaking directly to the potential abductor, even offering to pay and acknowledging her mother may no longer be alive. Her latest was shared on July 27, in which she said her family was in a nightmare that will not end. Still, no suspects were identified. On June 26, TMZ reported it received a third ransom letter from someone claiming 2 people are responsible for Guthrie's kidnapping, and there is video of the main guy and Guthrie on a phone in a secure location. The letter offered the phone's password in exchange for Bitcoin payment to an address associated with someone who sent one of the previous ransom notes. Though Nanos expressed skepticism about the notes, the FBI office in Phoenix said in an immediate update July 1 that they have not fully dismissed their validity. Some have been deemed to be extortion attempts without legitimacy. Other ransom demands may potentially be legitimate and are still being investigated as such, the statement read. The case continues to be investigated as a kidnapping for ransom. Toth said ransom requests rarely are real, but the FBI's messaging may have other motives. They'll say things to get the people to lower their guard. I still think personally, without knowing all the evidence, just with my experience, there's a high chance it is somebody that knew her. They clearly knew her movements, knew everything about her, her routine. How close to her knowing her, I don't know. Though the investigation seems to have slowed, Toth notes that there might be developments authorities haven't yet publicized. In fact, withholding certain facts is a common tactic investigators used to try and narrow the likelihood of fake people coming forward. You'd be shocked how many people admit to murder that didn't do the murder, he says. I mean, it's crazy. It happens all the time. When someone vanishes without a trace, Toth said, they typically are either declared legally dead after 7 years. When there is evidence of crime, however, there is no true timeline when that step can or should be taken. If the investigators can prove to a judge that there's strong evidence of a death, like in this, where they got that blood, her pacemaker's not registering anymore, they could possibly get her ruled deceased, Toth said. Now the family must argue against that, and there may be reasons why they don't want it. Maybe they're holding out hope that she is alive, but it doesn't necessarily have to take the 7 years. My guess is, behind the scenes and quietly, they probably are assuming she's deceased. If authorities do end up identifying a suspect, for example, the person at the doorbell camera footage, Toth notes, they would not necessarily lead to uncover Guthrie's remains to prosecute a murder case. The case would always be open, and if they've got enough evidence to go after the person and they're able to prove that it's the person at the door, that's circumstantial, that he's probably the one that killed her, Toth said. So then it falls to law enforcement and then bring it to the county attorney or district attorney and pitch it to them. A lot of people have been convicted on just circumstantial evidence. Celebrities. Zendaya and Holland keep it real, and fans want more. There's a reason why we can't get enough of Zendaya and Tom Holland. Ever since they made their relationship public in 2021, the most we've learned about the famous couple has been through flirty exchanges on Instagram and furtive date nights captured by paparazzi. But on their month-long global tour promoting The Odyssey and Spider-Man Brand New Day, both in theaters now, the Hollywood newlyweds have given us an intimate new window into their love story that has been both incredibly endearing yet compellingly elusive. Though many celebrity pairs make grand romantic statements on podcasts and billboards, it's very different with Tom and Zendaya, says Wayland Tate, a public relations and marketing strategist. They'll give us glimpses into their love for one another, but there's something admirable about them holding back, which in turn is its own kind of PR move. It leaves us thirsty for more. In touting their films, Zendaya, 29, and Holland, 30, have answered myriad questions about what it's like to work together as actors. In turn, they've charmingly gushed about each other's talent and how proud they are of the other person. Zendaya told Jimmy Fallon she's Holland's biggest fan. Many of their sweetest viral moments have been on the red carpet, Holland blowing kisses to Zendaya mid-interview, helping her fix her dress before greeting cameras, and affectionately calling her by her middle name. We all see their playfulness, the way they look at each other, or the way Tom casually puts his hand around Zendaya's waist, says Janelle Hamilton, founder of Janelle Hamilton PR. They're not trying to hide anything, but they're also not trying to do too much. As a result, the public feels as though they're a fly on the wall, witnessing their natural chemistry, the winks, the subtle touches, and the support they show one another. It all comes across as genuine rather than staged, and it doesn't always feel that way with other celebrity couples. There has been intense speculation about the A-listers' engagement ever since early 2025, when Zendaya showed up to the Golden Globes wearing a diamond ring. A year later, her longtime stylist Law Roach revealed in a seemingly off-the-cuff red carpet interview that the sweethearts had secretly wed. The way that was handled, with Law breaking the news, was very intentional, Hamilton said. They set a clear boundary with the media because they've made it known that they themselves won't be sharing that special moment with the rest of the world. Outside of promoting their projects, the actors rarely give interviews or attend industry events. Because they have been consistently private through the years, it has been easier for the public to accept that some subjects are simply off limits. Holland has referred to Zendaya as his wife in interviews, and she laughed when photographers have called her Mrs. Holland, but otherwise they have fielded few questions about their romance. Both Zendaya and Tom ooze charisma and are incredibly likable, Hamilton says. The media seems to genuinely like them, and that mutual respect creates healthy boundaries between both parties. This works in their favor when it comes to their wedding, marriage, and relationship, because I'm sure the media doesn't want to push too hard into the personal lives and risk losing out on interview opportunities in the future. They are also former child actors with ample media training, giving them a sense of coached authenticity. Tate says, unlike many stars of their generation who flat out refuse personal questions, Holland and Zendaya have mastered the art of bringing it back to the respective movies. For instance, when one journalist tried asking Zendaya for bridal tips, the actress responded with advice that her character in the drama might offer. We know they got married, but beyond that, they have not invited us inside of what that means to them. It's refreshing, Tate says. They're masters of the pivot. They're not going to just shut it down and say, I'm not discussing that. They're going to dangle a bit and give you just enough. They either have really good PR people coaching them, or they're just both very naturally able to pivot those questions. When it comes to celebrities, there is a very fine line between saying too much and telling the media nothing at all, Hamilton said. You don't want to come across as too distant or untouchable, but you also don't want to be perceived as too accessible. Zendaya and Tom Holland have managed to find the perfect balance. But even if the lovebirds are tightly micromanaged behind the scenes, there's no substitute for lived experience, as the pair have grown visibly more comfortable just being themselves in the limelight. Case in point, at a 2024 candid camera clip of Zendaya and Holland taking in a tennis match, as they relax and sip sparkling water, they simultaneously start singing along to Whitney Houston. They don't pack on PDA or even look at each other, but their sincere connection and ease is apparent. The affection that we see between them is genuine, Tate says. It's not something that a good publicist can manufacture. Nothing that we see of them looks like a PR stunt, and a lot of it comes with age. They're somewhat letting their guard down. They've become very natural in who they are and in their public personas. Here are a few celebrity birthdays. Politician Alberto Gonzalez turns 71 today. Actor Billy Bob Thornton, 71. Former President Barack Obama, 65. Musician Terry Lynn Carrington, 61. Author Dennis Lehane, 61. Actor Daniel Day Kim, 58. Journalist Brett Baer, 56. Politician Hakeem Jeffries, 56. Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, 45. Director Greta Gerwig, 43. Singer Crystal Bowersox, 41. Actors Cole and Dylan Sprouse, 34. You are listening to today's readings of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 53 minutes after the hour. In television, Affleck Ding collect on millionaire for a good cause. Two-time Oscar winner and Jeopardy legend can now add Who Wants to Be a Millionaire champion to their impressive resumes. Ben Affleck and Jamie Ding answered all 15 multiple-choice questions, earning $1 million for the Eastern Congo Initiative, co-founded by Affleck on the July 29th episode of Millionaire, ABC, on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. For the past 17 years, Eastern Congo Initiative has funded more than 100 Congolese organizations, helping local leaders build lasting solutions, Affleck said in a statement to USA Today. It has been a privilege to watch them create a more peaceful, prosperous, and hopeful future for Eastern Congo. Affleck added, and it was a great honor to ride Jamie's coattails all the way. Ding, who sits on the Jeopardy leaderboard of legends after winning a consecutive 31 games and $882,605 during a streak that aired from March to April, tells USA Today he felt optimistic going into the ABC game show. He also felt grateful to be partnered with Affleck, whom he hadn't met before. We're kind of an arranged marriage, Ding jokes, while wearing an orange-faced Doxa watch, a pricey purchase made with his Jeopardy winnings. It's good to have different areas of expertise. Affleck and Matt Damon both competed on Millionaire. Last season, Affleck's best friend and frequent collaborator, Matt Damon, competed on Millionaire with another Jeopardy icon. Damon ended up winning the $1 million jackpot with Ken Jennings, who has since become the trivia show's host. So when the July 22nd season premiere kicked off this year, Affleck was determined to make his mark with Ding. How Ben Affleck, Jamie Ding won Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The duo entered the July 29th episode with just 2 questions sitting between them and the victory. They also had 3 lifelines intact: 50-50, phone a friend, and asking host Jimmy Kimmel. I feel like I was quite nervous toward the end because it's a lot of money, Ding says, noting one wrong answer would have knocked the team down to $32,000. I think that Ben was maybe a little more decisive toward the end. He was talking and getting us to move where perhaps I would have just sat there for a while and been immobilized by the indecision. Affleck had a hunch about the $500,000 question, which asked, what achievement occurred just 2 months after a New York Times article said it wouldn't happen for 1 million to 10 million years? The answer, the first airplane flight, jumped out to Affleck among the other options of splitting the atom, cloning a mammal, and the polio vaccine. I only remember this because there was a time in my life where I spent time looking up examples that the press got things wrong. Affleck, often fascinated for tabloids, said on the show with a chuckle, "Yeah, just randomly." The pair hugged after ascending to $500,000. Kimmel's hunch helps with the final question. The last question posed the biggest challenge for Ding, but thankfully Kimmel had an inkling about turkeys that hadn't received presidential pardons. I do a bit about this every single year on the show, Kimmel said, noting he wasn't fully certain. I feel like spaghetti and meatball would have been something that I made jokes about. I could see like me adding a big bowl in Donald Trump's hands and him slurping up the spaghetti and meatballs, you know? That one sounds like it wasn't the one to me. Affleck felt confident in Kimmel's hunch, explaining, how many nighttime talk show hosts are there that have been doing this? Fewer and fewer as we go on, Kimmel interjected. There's no pardons for us. Ding also phoned his friend and longtime trivia teammate, Stephen Morrison. After hearing the question, Morrison said his answer would be a wild guess, and time ran out before he could give it. Ding and Affleck decided to go with Kimmel's answer, ultimately risking $468,000 in the process. I liked Jimmy's answer because it made sense. Like he said, he probably would have made jokes about spaghetti and meatball, and had that come up before. So it was a solid piece of evidence. It didn't feel like a guess. It's interesting that we never really seriously considered walking away, Ding notes. I guess we both wanted to go for glory if we could. And the glory they achieved after a pause so dramatically long that Affleck looked confused about what was happening. Celebratory lights began flashing and confetti rained down. I felt so good when the lights went on like that, Ding said. I certainly think that we did a great job, but it also takes a lot of luck. And in this case, our skill and luck were both good. Jeopardy winner on claiming another victory. After the win, Ding said he and Affleck were elated. They were just feeling so good. We did get a photo of me and Ben and my parents and my sister, Ding said. I thought that was nice. And then Ben did have to leave pretty quickly afterwards. Ding will next appear on the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions, which kicks off August 10th. Ding plans to prepare by brushing up on geography. He also believes taking notes by hand helps him commit the information to memory. The nice thing about Millionaire is that it's over. With Jeopardy, I guess everybody eventually loses. There's that sting of defeat in every Jeopardy champion's memory, and there's none of that with Millionaire. They're both wonderful feelings. I'm happy that I can have both. Oregon State leads a charge for a women's union. An effort to form a union and collectively bargain has begun in women's college basketball. The United College Athletes Association announced on Friday, July 31st, that more than 100 women's college basketball players have signed union authorization cards. Also on Friday, members of the Oregon State's women's basketball team filed a petition for union representation with the Oregon Employment Relations Board, which marks a formal effort to seek collective bargaining rights under state law. One of the leaders of the nationwide effort is rising Maryland senior Oluchi Akawana, who was outspoken earlier this year because of the SCORE Act, which would have given the NCAA and its member institutions antitrust protection and prohibited college athletes from collective bargaining. The SCORE Act stumbled, and an official vote in Congress was canceled. Now, many of the most powerful people in college athletics are rallying behind the Protect College Sports Act, a bipartisan federal bill co-led by Senators Maria Cantwell and Ted Cruz. Akinwana, an all-Big Ten selection for the Terrapins and former ACC tournament MVP when she was at Duke, is serving as the interim president for the UCAA. We, the players, deserve more than promises. We deserve a seat at the table, meaningful protections, fair compensation, and a collective bargaining agreement that raises the standard for everyone, Akinwana said in a statement. This work is bigger than any one season or generation. We are building lasting power for the athletes competing today and for those who will come after us. Other members of the UCAA's interim executive committee include LSU point guard Jada Williams, Oregon State senior guard Jenna Villa, Indiana guard Malia Samuelson, Missouri guard Grace Slaughter, San Diego State forward Kennedy Lee, and recent graduates Charlize Ledger-Walker, Brooke Daniels, and Destiny Howard. The Oregon State filing is a historic milestone for the movement because for the first time a group of women college athletes has formally sought recognition as a players' union. And unlike previous efforts by football players at Northwestern, men's basketball players at Dartmouth, and the recent formation of football players at Stanford, they are doing this at a public university, meaning that whether members of the Beavers women's basketball team can become union members will be determined by state law, not federal. To help these women's college basketball players, the UCAA has also formed an advisory board that includes WNBA players Nikena Okomaki, Elizabeth Williams, and Cameron Brink. Ogwumike is president of the WNBA Players Association and just helped shepherd players through a lengthy collective bargaining negotiation earlier this year. As women's basketball players, we know that our game is growing exponentially. Our labor is exceptionally valuable, and our unions can deliver transformational victories for past, current, and future generations, Ogwumike said in a statement. The bottom line is simple. College athletes deserve the same rights and protections as professional athletes. Other members of the UCAA Advisory Board include Jennifer Abruzzo, former General Counsel of the National Labor Relations Board, Megan Burke, Executive Director of the National Women's Soccer League Players Association, Dominique Foxworth, former President of the NFL Players Association, as well as Bill Fletcher Jr., Garrett Brogius, and John Hyatt, Andrew Cooper, and former Oregon State women's basketball player Michaela Pivek are the co-founders of the UCAA. Efforts by the UCAA to start a union began 2 years ago when a group of more than 120 players from the SEC and the Big Ten signed a letter demanding a meeting with leadership from both conferences. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petty refused to meet with the players ahead of the landmark House versus NCAA antitrust class action settlement being formally approved last June. Finally, Serena Williams pledges a fun summer with the U.S. Open. Serena Williams is looking ahead to this year's U.S. Open, but not for the reasons you might expect. The 23-time Grand Slam tennis winner is partnering with Heineken 0.0, the non-alcoholic version of the Dutch beer, to give fans a shot at sitting in the brand's suite at this year's Open. Heineken's Second Serve Tickets program will accept photos of fans' ticket stubs from any of Williams' past matches as contest entries. Heineken 0.0 will also reimagine the stubs from Williams' 6 previous Open wins as limited edition cans sold at the venue for this year's event. Williams, speaking to USA Today via telephone, said she's disappointed she didn't collect the actual ticket stubs from her 6 wins. Ticket stubs, along with trading cards, soared in popularity and market value during the collection boom that happened in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Then again, I never really had a ticket, but I guess other people did have a ticket, the Icon 44 continues, so I should have collected those. Her husband, Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian, has amassed the largest collection of Williams trading cards in the world, a staggering 3,000 plus, according to collectible industry outlet PSA Magazine. As for the athlete herself, Williams has received gifts from friends that she added to her collection. She did make it a point to collect 2 things from her career: Wheaties boxes and match-used outfits of note. She also won quite a few trophies, which sit in a separate room in her house that she never goes in. Williams' Heineken 0.0 campaign is focused on the fans. In 2024, the 6-time Open champion experienced the tournament for the first time as a spectator. She remembers trying the viral chicken nuggets with caviar. There was so many things going on in that venue, I didn't know that was happening, whether it was in the suites or just in the stands, she remarks. And Williams is right. From the beverages to food to celebrity sightings to DJs to performances, the Open has evolved into one of the premier summer events in New York. It was fun. It was really a good experience. At the outset, Williams' partnership with Heineken 0.0 around the U.S. Open wouldn't raise too many eyebrows given her history with the event. Williams' 6 singles championships at the tournament have yielded a 108-15 record. I think because it's the only Grand Slam in the States and you obviously want to do well, she explains of why she found success at the tourney held in the New York City borough of Queens. But given recent events, will she be a competitor or a spectator at this year's event? The Icon returned to competition earlier this year, winning a doubles match at the HSBC Championship with Canada's Victoria Mboko. She then entered Wimbledon as a wild card and lost a 3-set match in the first round to Australian Maya Joint. A knee injury forced Williams to withdraw from a doubles match alongside her sister Venus. "It's much better, thank goodness," Williams said of her knee, and she confirms that she returned to the tennis court. However, she will not elaborate on the capacity. "It should be a fun summer," she concludes. You have been listening to a reading of the USA Today for August 4th. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Dave.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 2 of Wayward Girls by Susan Wiggs. Following that at 3 o'clock is National Geographic. And at 4 o'clock is a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,